You're looking to buy a property and you can't confirm whether it has lead paint. If you have children, you may want to look into it and investigate a little further, or at least know your rights before you decide to make that purchase. Stay tuned for my tips. Lead paint was common in the early 1900s, and for whatever reason, people just didn't know it was dangerous for the development of children. I live in Massachusetts, and like many other states, we have to disclose as part of a sale whether or not the property may have lead paint. In the majority of cases, a seller will simply disclose that they have no knowledge or no documents to prove a property has lead paint. Basically, the disclosure is in effect, I have no knowledge. On the other hand, if a property owner did in fact conduct a property inspection or has proof that the property has lead paint that could have lead paint versus being lead safe. Now, you could just hire an inspector and get a test done, but there are issues that pop up with going with that route. First of all, there's a formal and official inspection report that will indicate whether it's lead-free or has lead hazards. The reason people prefer not to do it is now they can no longer disclose they have no knowledge if in fact lead paint is confirmed. On the other hand, if you choose not to take any action, it will be a matter of public record that the property has lead paint. If you use a licensed lead inspector and the property inspection report reveals there is lead paint in the property, that inspection gets filed with a state office that maintains a registry advising of whether the property has lead paint or is lead safe after remediation is completed. As a buyer, you have the right to inspect for lead paint, but you gotta understand that with today's hot market, it's unlikely that you can negotiate with a seller a reduced price, and the purpose would only be to confirm so that you have knowledge that eventually you will have to pay for the de-leading. Now, if you have a primary residence, or even if it's a multifamily but you live in one unit, the state offers subsidized loans which allow you to borrow the amount of money necessary to de-lead the property. De-leading costs can be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 per unit, and it all depends on the size. If it's your primary residence, most programs do not require a repayment unless you intend to refinance or sell the property. Of course, you need to repay the loan back, but many offer a subsidy, meaning in fact you will borrow it at 0% and you can pay over time or at such point in the future where you decide to refinance or sell the property. On the other hand, if you're strictly going through as an investment, then there are no loans other than those loans that you can get for yourself as a borrower, and you are fully responsible for ensuring that the property is lead safe and borrowing money to pay for the service if it becomes necessary. If you rented the property to a family and they have no children under 6, then there is no requirement that the property be certified lead safe. But what happens if a child is born while the unit is rented? If you have tenants that had children while you rented the property to them and you have no knowledge or information as to whether the property is lead safe, you definitely have an issue in your hands that you got to deal with. On the one hand, if the property is recently renovated or it looks in good shape, no flaking snow, nothing particular or dangerous, I mean, you take a risk by just leaving things as they are. But if you're concerned as to whether or not there's a danger to the child and you are unlikely to find out, that's very unlikely. Children are seen by their doctors roughly once a year. One of the tests that they are subject to are blood tests that test for lead paint. If the child is found to have the hazard of lead paint, the homeowner will be notified. Now, of course, we definitely want to avoid that, but each property owner must for themselves find out whether or not there's reason to know that the property has lead paint or reason to believe that the danger is abated. Going back, if you know that the property has lead paint and you now have a minor child in the home or apartment, according to Massachusetts law, this is where you must make a note to yourself of the law protections against discrimination against families. It is discrimination to not rent to a family if your property has lead paint and they have children under 6 years of age. You might think, oh, I'll just tell them that it has lead paint and they will choose not to rent. While it is accurate that many families choose not to rent, the law in fact says you are discriminating. As a property owner, you have an obligation to remove the lead paint and rent to that person. You cannot discriminate between families that have children and families that do not have children. But if they're already there, which is exactly the example I was trying to discuss earlier, the only solution is remediation or elimination of the lead paint. If a family has a child and they know that the property has lead paint, they may choose to voluntarily vacate an apartment and go to a lead-safe unit. But Massachusetts law does not require a family to vacate. In fact, the Massachusetts law requires that the property owner eliminate the risk. The choices that the landlord has are to, 1, abate the lead paint, which means that interim controls are put in place to eliminate the risk, but the property is not deemed lead safe. Simply, you're taking preventive measures. On the other hand, you simply can contract out the work to remove the lead paint, and an inspector will test that all hazards have been eliminated, and they will issue you a certificate acknowledging that the property is now lead safe. That certificate gets registered with the state of Massachusetts, and it'll be proof that that unit is no longer a problem. But if you have multiple units, it can be costly. So you must take that into account when you're choosing to invest. Again, this mainly applies to areas that have older homes built prior to 1978, and the rules or laws may be different in your city or state, but they generally mirror each other, choosing to protect families and encouraging people and investors to remove the lead from the property. The goal of the law is that if lead is eventually removed from all properties, there will no longer be any property that has it. But we have a long way to go, especially in Boston, where the majority of homes are over 100 years old, and until you get a lead safe inspection, you have no way of proving you're buying or selling a lead-free property. Good luck in your investing. I hope you found this video useful. Please share with a friend and stay tuned for more.